Hey Facebook. All right, I hope you guys are having a really good Friday night. And I know this is like not the typical Friday night, yay, live that typical. I just wanted to come on. I don't even know what I'm going to say, you guys. I don't have notes or anything like that. I just really felt led to say something. And so I'm going to think about it and I'm going to say something. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of posts about like suicide and depression and mental illness and stuff going around since there's been just, a lot of that happening in like mainstream media right now. And if you happen to watch this and you want to say, hey, that would be awesome. If you just want to be anonymous, that's cool too. So for those of you who don't know, I have a history of like depression and anxiety, and I really struggled significantly in my 20s with a lot of that. And I guess I just want to talk about a couple of like stereotypes and things that, unless you've actually been in the position of being depressed or being suicidal, that you may not know. And it's just stuff that like, it's like the same thing. Like, try to explain a headache to someone who's never had a headache, right? Like, that would be hard, right? To be like, it feels like your head's gonna explode, and they'd be like, what? Or someone once told me, like, try to explain the color yellow to someone who can't see, right? It's like those concepts. Like, we can talk about it and we can give examples, but unless you've lived it, it's really hard. Even someone who has lived it, it's really hard to explain. But I wanted to come on just in crazy, I'm exhausted self and talk for a second. So I hope you just bear with me. If you have questions, feel free to write them. I'll comment later or now, depending on when you write it. But okay, so a couple things. First of all, like I said, my biggest struggle was in my 20s, like my mid to late 20s. And I think that's the first misconception, is that a lot of these diseases, whether they're eating disorders or self-harm or anxiety or depression, are like only on like teenagers and things. And as you can tell from the stuff that's been in the media lately, that's not the case, okay? And so things to remember is that there is no age for mental illness that like is like the age. And that leads me, I guess, into my second thing, which is you can't tell by looking at someone. And I know I usually talk about that when it comes to eating disorders and the concept of like you can't tell. For example, and I'll never talk numbers, but at my sickest in an eating disorder, it was actually not my lowest weight. And people don't understand that. Like weight and sickness don't necessarily correspond in the course of like an eating disorder. And the same thing is through I can't speak, sorry. The same thing is true with like depression and anxiety. And so my cat always comes in when I do live videos. Hey, buddy. And so, I'm so tired, you guys. You have no idea. I'll say hi to Geppetto. You can't tell by looking at someone. And you may even think, well, like, I know this person really well, or I work with this person, or that's my sister, or that's my wife, or that's my brother, or whatever. And you're like, I know this person. And I am here to tell you, you still may not know. And that, I think, is some of the hardest things, because I know there's a lot of times when like something happens like suicide and stuff, and people want an answer, like, why did this happen? Or like, how did I not know? How did I miss the signs? And what I want to say is, it's not your fault. It's not you. You can be as close as you think you are to someone, and there's still going to cat stuff. Sorry, guys. Like, there's still going to be stuff that you don't know. And I think it's also hard because so often the person who's struggling doesn't even know themselves. And I guess that leads me into my third point. Are you comfy, dude? My third point is there's not necessarily a catalyst, one catalyst. And I'm talking specifically about like suicide in this moment. I know a lot of people have already touched on the fact that depression is different than sadness. Depression is not sadness. Having a really bad week does not equal depression. Losing someone close to you is not necessarily depression. Like, it can lead to it and that could trigger it. That's a whole separate thing. But like, just grief in general, grief is different than depression, like medical depression. So right now there's like cat hair flying around, guys. I'm like crazy. Depression, you can't, it's not a choice. Just like you don't choose diabetes, just like you don't choose heart disease, just like you don't choose asthma, just like you don't choose allergies, okay? You don't choose depression. And just like I have asthma, you guys. Just like I can't decide, like I'm allergic to this cat. Like, I'm going to start sneezing here pretty soon if he sits here. I can't decide, like, don't be allergic to him. Don't sneeze. Like, that's crazy. And any of you would be like, that's crazy, right? It's the same thing with depression. It's the same thing with anxiety. You can't tell someone who's anxious, like, oh, just chill out. You can't tell someone who's depressed, oh, just be happy. Just be thankful for what you have. Because it honestly has nothing to do with that. Just because someone has asthma doesn't mean they're not thankful for their family. You know what I'm saying? And you'd be like, well, of course not. It's the same thing with depression. If you tell someone who's depressed, like, well, look at your family. Aren't you so thankful for your family? Yes. That has nothing to do with my depression. Well, look at you have a great job. Don't you have a great job? Aren't you so happy? Yes. Oh, look at all these other people who are worse off than you. You shouldn't be depressed. That's like saying, like, certain people deserve asthma or don't deserve. That makes no sense. And that's the same thing with depression. And so it's hard when, like, I'll see things or I'll hear things when people are saying, and these are things that I did experience. Like when I went through, people, they just don't understand why you can't, and they think like, well, aren't things good enough that you could be this? And the thing is, it's a medical condition and you can't just snap out of it. Which brings me to what I was talking about before with, like, there isn't just necessarily a catalyst. And, so oftentimes when something happens, people are like, what caused that? Like, what was the reason that that person did it? Or what was the final thing that pushed them over the edge? Or I'll see things, and again, this is so different for me now as a mom and as a family, and I'll touch on that why in just a second. But people will be like, she had a great family, or he had a great family, or he had a great job, or he had all this money, or he had, things going for him, or there were so many people worse off, or there were people who loved him. Like, when you're in that moment, you're not reacting to one specific thing typically. It's literally, and keep in mind you're sick, okay? So you're not thinking clearly and you're sick, but it's literally in that moment feeling like everything is going to be better if you just weren't here. Like, it for everyone. Like, you're not trying to hurt people. In most people's minds, they think everybody's going to be better off. That's not necessarily true, obviously, okay? But that can be the thought process, is that people are going to be better off, okay, without you around. The thought process can be, okay, here's really real, okay, real talk, guys. So I can tell you hands down, time over time, I remember speaking to my therapist and saying, like, I get that, like, I might, if I did this now, like, I will miss out on, like, being a mom, because this is before I had kids, guys. Like, I would miss out on being a mom and stuff like that. And as much as I want that, or I'll miss out on, like, different parts of life, but I am okay with that. You guys, those words came out of my mouth time and time and time again. And sitting here as a mom of 3 incredible children and realizing I wouldn't get to know Ethan and Addison and Jacob if that had been true. And praise be to God that I am here today, because it is by God alone. And if you don't know God and you want to talk to me about knowing God, I will talk to you about knowing God too. Okay, I didn't meet God until I was 19 years old, you guys. But I don't live this day without him. I don't live a single day without God. But those words came out of my mouth and I believed them, okay? And it wasn't because I just was being dramatic or because I wanted attention. Honestly, I didn't want attention. I didn't want to even talk about it. I literally thought, like, I just don't want to deal with the pain anymore. And the pain is inside. It has nothing to do with your job. I had a job that I loved. It has nothing to do with your family. I have family who loves me. Okay, I'm going to start sneezing now, guys, and that's because of the cat. Sorry. I had, by all things on the outside, everything going for me, right? But that doesn't mean you can't be sick, and that doesn't mean you can't be in pain, and it doesn't mean you can be in a place that's really dangerous and scary. And it's scary for the person inside, because really no one can understand what you're going through, and you don't understand it yourself, and you don't know how to get out a lot of times, okay? So, where am I going with this? I don't know. First of all, as someone who's on the other side of those thoughts, Um, sorry, allergies, guys. I can't will them away, just like I was talking about. As someone who's on the other side, if you are someone who is feeling that now, talk to me, talk to someone, reach out, because and I know people told, like, my therapist told me this then and I didn't believe it now, but I'm just hoping that, like, there's little things that you could hear and you can listen, okay? You may not feel that way 10 years from now. You may not feel that way down the line, okay? Because there is help and there is hope even when you don't feel like there's hope and you don't feel like there's help, okay? So someone who's known those thoughts and is on the other side living like with the very like motherhood that I didn't think I was going to get to have, please know there's more. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, if you know someone who is struggling and you know they're struggling, be there. Be there. Help them get resources, help them get help, but just let them know that you're there. There may not be something you can do, but be there, be present. Even if like it's just checking in, even if it's just sending like a smiley face and an I love you, okay? Just being there, that sometimes is enough. If you're struggling, don't be afraid to get help. If you don't know where to get help, I'd be glad to help you. I don't care if I know you. I don't care if I don't know you. But there are resources and there are places we can get help. And know that it's hard. It's freaking hard. It's freaking hard. It is work. It is hard. It is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Deciding to fight and winning the fight. Now, I am not going to sit up here or down here. I'm on the floor. Down here and tell you that it's easy. There are still things that I struggle with. There are still things daily that are my demons that I have to overcome and I have to fight, which is why I think I still feel so strongly about this, because it's not just something that goes away. Just like asthma. I can control my asthma and I can have like months and months where like I don't need an inhaler, but then there are seasons where I am using my inhaler 2 and 3 times a day, right? True story. Same thing with the other issues, okay? There are times where I can go months and months and I can be okay, and then there are seasons where I'm not. And I thankfully am like cognizant enough to understand what those seasons look like a little bit better now, and to catch them earlier, but that doesn't mean that I don't still struggle. And so know you're not alone. Know there is hope. And I guess I just wanted to say all that. I don't even know, you guys. This isn't like a 5-point essay with like my thesis and my body paragraphs and my point. But yeah, so I don't want to ramble too long because I'm hoping people actually watch this and get something from it. So if you do, and you did, I would love for you to comment or share. You can PM me if you need anything. But yeah. And I feel like I said like a lot and like nothing all at the same time. Is that crazy? So that's it for now. And I love you guys, and I hope you have a really amazing night and a really good weekend, and know that you are enough. All right. Bye, guys.